This time in the Magic Kitchen, we are joined by Charity Bedell, author of Divine Dirt.
I'm Leandra Witchwood.
And I'm Elyse Wells.
And welcome to the Magic Kitchen podcast, where we talk about magic, kitchen witchcraft, herbs,
and everything in between.
The Magic Kitchen podcast is funded and supported by thewitchwoodteahouse.com, offering a variety of hand-blended loose leaf teas as well as loose herbs for all of your ritual, spell work, wellness, and everyday enjoyment needs. If you would like to support this podcast while sipping a great cup of tea, head over to thewitchwoodteahouse.com and find the magic that's in store for you.
Charity L. Bedell, also known as Luna Wind, is one of the co-authors of the Modern Day Witch series and the Wikipedia spell deck. She has studied Conjure with Mama Star and Fairy with V-Dub, and she is initiated in the Temple tradition. The author of Container Magic, Bedell has written for the Witch's Almanac and Kindred Spirit magazine, and she has presented at festivals. Learn more at mystic-echoes.com, and we will put that link in the show notes. Thank you for being with us, Charity.
Yeah, welcome.
I'm glad I can be here. I love talking about witchcraft. I love talking about magic, and I really love talking about the work I've put into my books. And
I love dirt.
Yes.
And it's becoming an author has been a long time coming, and I'm just, now that I've started, I just keep going and keep going. Good. I have things that I've been working on and working towards, and it's been a lifelong dream. So
excellent. Oh, good. I love those books that come out that way. That's my book about connecting with land spirits. As of recording this, we don't have the official title yet, but once it releases in March, I'm pretty sure we will have a title by then. It's the same. Like, it just feels so powerful to be able to take the words that are in the ether and put them into a book and then share that with people. Like, it's just amazing. It's such a high calling, and it's such a beautiful form of alchemy. And I am very glad that you did that with Divine Dirt, because as soon as we saw the title in the catalog, we were like, this is it. This is what needs to happen. Yeah, we were like, please say yes to the interview, because it's so important. Dirt is everywhere, and yet just neglected, truly. Like, nobody thinks of it the way they should.
Or just overlooked, I think. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Charity?
I mean, dirt really is overlooked. It's everywhere. It's in your house. It's at the bottom of your shoes. It's on the ocean. It's in the malls. It's the foundation of the planet we live on. It's absolutely everywhere. You can't go anywhere without finding dirt. And so it was like, why don't people talk about dirt? It's here too. It's filled with life. I mean, there are bacteria and microcosms that live in dirt. But it's also got the energy of the place, and our planet is full of life and energy everywhere. You got malls that are full of socialization and commerce. You got beauty salons that have the energy of beauty and self-confidence, as well as renewal. You have doctor's offices for healing and harm. You got nature, different places and location, because a forest is going to feel different than a mountain, and that's going to be different than a swamp or a desert or a volcano. And even different bodies of water are going to have different feels and different uses. Like, an ocean beach is going to feel different than a lakeside beach, which is going to feel different than a river beach, because they all have different energies. They all have different spirits. So why not learn how to tap into that energy and add that into your tool book, because it's a tool that you can add to your toolkit anywhere, and it really doesn't cost any money. The only thing that really costs money is the stuff to gather the dirt with, whether it be using a plastic baggie that you get from your kitchen drawer for storing snacks, or you use the bottle cap of a bottle that you just drank from to harvest. Those are really the only things that cost money when you're working with dirt. Everything else, you can find a way to give an offering and do that type of work without having to spend money. You can do other things for offerings. It doesn't have to be money.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I even have like a little kit in the back of my car where I keep little jars, little bottles, and then I have those mini like trowels and like I don't know what you call them, but they look like the hands.
The claw things.
The claw thing, yeah, that you dig dirt with. And it's just something I always keep there. And they weren't expensive. You know, I think I got the mini tools at my local gardening shop on clearance for like $10 or something like that. And the jars and stuff are really just kind of a random collection that I just throw in there. I'm like, oh, that looks like a good size. I'm going to put that in there.
I mean, you don't have, you can use basically anything for a container. I gathered dirt one time at a banquet. I didn't have a plastic bag with me. I didn't have any jars or any other containers with me. I had a pile of tissues. So what I was, I swept up as much dirt as I could in the tissues, folded the tissues up into a nice little pile, or as much of a pile as I could. It kind of looked like a knotted ball of trash at the time, but it was just trying to keep all the dirt in the center. And then when I got home, I took a baggie and carefully shook the dirt into from the tissues into bag, and that's how I stored that dirt. So you can find something to carry your dirt in. And if all else fails, you can always get the dirt off the bottom of your shoe if you absolutely have to.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good tip, actually. You are invited to experience the most famous oracle site in the world with a native Greek priestess who has built a relationship with the Pythia herself. Will you join me? April 27th to May 2nd, I will be leading an intimate group of people on the priestess path to the Oracle of Delphi, the Valley of the Muses, and so much more. Experience shamanic journeying to the beat of my drum as you take in the sounds of cicadas and the scent of sea and olive groves. Eat fresh local produce and wake up every morning to the sea before you, having coffee by the pool in our secluded villa. Be anointed by the Castalia Springs, just like those on the pilgrimages to Delphi thousands and thousands of years ago. Visit seekingnumina.com/Delphi retreat for more information or to set up a call with me about it. Your intuition is waiting for you to listen. Awaken your gifts with the Oracle. And like you explained in the book, you don't need a lot of dirt. Like, unless you're building a dirt altar and you know you want a lot.
No.
You can get the essence of what that dirt can do for you with just a little sprinkle.
Literally just a little pinch will add the essence of the spirit. So even though it might be listed first on an ingredient list, it might not be what you actually have the most of. It's listed first because it's the most important, because of how much power is in that essence. Because I've personally found that this essence and energy in dirt is so much more concentrated than the essence of herbs and crystals. And it's because the actual spirit lives in that dirt. And so when you're taking dirt, you're taking a physical part of that spirit with you. And you have a little bit of that spirit's actual physical form.
Yes.
And because dirt has been around for so long, that energy and power just built up over time. Whereas herbs, you're using, again, the spirit part of the spirit's physical form, but they only have a year-to-year life, whereas dirt's been there for hundreds of years. I mean, it could have, that dirt under your feet right now could have started as a boulder 1,000 years ago, and over time got ground down into tiny granules. That's why dirt has such a powerful force. It's been there forever. It's got ancient wisdom as well as modern wisdom, because even though dirt's been there forever, it evolves with the time. So a place that's at a mall now that 100 years ago might have been an open field and had the energy of a field or plain, will then, because it developed into a mall, will then develop into the energy of commerce and socialization and public and anything you associate with malls, which for me is money, prosperity, success, relationships, both social friendships, romantic relationships, sexual relationships. So that's all the things that I would associate with the Mulder.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And that's what that mall would then, that energy that was a field then turns into that, because that's what the building became. Which is also why churches that are abandoned still have the energy of a church, because it was consecrated and sacred when it was built and became a house of that God. So therefore that energy is still there, even though it hasn't been used for worship in a long time, because it was made and blessed as it was being made. That energy is sealed into the earth, into that building.
I wanted to ask you, because my favorite part of the book, honestly, if I had to pick just one, is the fact that you start right off the get-go explaining how important it is to call on the spirits of place and ask their permission and acknowledge them before taking dirt. Could you share a little bit more about why that's so important? And if you feel comfortable, a little bit about your experience with land spirits.
Problem. One of the reasons why it's so important is that, as I just said a little earlier, is that when you use dirt, you're actually using the physical form of that spirit. So that spirit is physically there in your hands, and you're manipulating that energy to your goal. And so you want to ask their permission. If you don't ask their permission and you still use the dirt, you're forcefully manipulating them to do something they don't want to do. And when you do that, it can cause all sorts of chaos in your life. And the spirit they might give it to you once or twice, but if you continue doing that without asking them, without, getting them on board with the participation, they could then turn anything they've given you against you. Anything that they brought to you, they can remove, or they can just cause other stuff to happen. It's about respect. I mean, I don't like being just told out of the blue, hey, I need you to go do this. You don't get any say. You have to go do this now. I like being asked what to do with my time and being given the option to say no. Spirits are the same way. That's why you need to talk to them. That's why you need to get to know them. That's why you need to ask them, because they are living beings just like us. They have wants and needs just like we do.
Yeah. And we always talk about the not infringing on the will of others, but we usually apply that to human will. Don't do love spells because it interferes with the will of others, or it could, hexes, curses, in other forms of spell work. But we don't always apply that to the will of the energy the energy thought form, the egregore, the being, the entity that we're working with. And my work is mainly with herbs and the spirit of plants and plant allies. And when the same rules apply, develop that relationship first. So when I see people, and this one I know is probably going to be a trigger for some people, but when I see people with that handful of cinnamon and they're just blowing it out their door without any thought to, is that cinnamon, the essence of that cinnamon, connected to you? Does it want to help you? Are you just doing this because it's a trend and you think that's what you should do? Or are you actually connecting with the energy of that herb? Are you actually connecting with the energy of that bark, that plant, to bring forth this prosperity? Or are you just doing it because you were told to do it and now it's just something that you think you should do?
I mean, I found myself when I've talked to people that have just, done a technique, blow the cinnamon out the door to bring in prosperity and success. And they do it a couple times, but then several months go by and they're like, I'm not getting anything from this.
Right.
This magic doesn't work. I'm like, well, did you actually, call on the power? Did you actually direct any energy? Like, what's that? Like, yeah. There's a reason spell work is called work. There are things that you have to put energy into and do in order for things to work. You can't just go through the actions and expect it to happen. You might get lucky and have something happen.
Right.
Because I definitely had that happen, especially at the beginning when I was just, trying and testing out. I did something the way I was instructed and I had results. And then later on, I would try doing the same thing again and I did results. Then I realized, like, oh, I forgot one key step here. I forgot to actually do the work and raise the energy and direct the energy and focus and all that stuff. Those phrases aren't just catchy points to get you thinking about something. They are actually actions that need to be done. The intent is important and the desire is important,
Yeah.
but if you're not doing the actions to direct the work, then you're not going to get any work done.
There's no reciprocity, then it's just this commodification of actions and tools and supplies.
And I mean, I found that I think with dirt that matters even more, just because of just how intense those spirits can be, because we're literally walking over them just by living in our lives. So they're used to having no one pay them any attention. But when you're starting to pay attention to them, if you're just using them, they're going to get upset. That's why I tell people, get to know the spirit. Introduce yourself before working with their energy and before harvesting. Go to a location, talk to the spirit, introduce yourself, give them water, give them a offering. Do that a couple of times. Spend time getting your personal energy aligned with the energy of that spirit. And develop that relationship so that you get that connection. And as that connection grows, you'll get a better feeling of how that spirit wants to work with you, and if they do, what they want to do and how much they're willing to work with you. It might just be might have a more, oh, thanks for acknowledging me. Yeah, I'll help you out here and there a little bit, but I'm cool just being acknowledged. Whereas other spirits are going to be like, oh yeah, let's get this work done. It's all going to depend on their personality and your relationship with them. And you may also find that once you develop a relationship with them, they may ask you to do something for them, like a spirit for a public park might you to go and help clean it up a little bit, pay attention and, pick up some trash and take care of some things. Or you might get the sense that you're supposed to help repair something like a building or something, and that's just the spirit asking you to do something for it. And it's important to do that as well as asking it for stuff. Because again, if you're just asking it, you're just take. You got to give them something too.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you. And I love that you brought this home right in the beginning of the book. And I love that we're talking about it now. And like in ancient Greece, we have a concept of sacred reciprocity, and we have a word for it. Like it's a vocab word, charis. And it is the recognition that spirit requires something of us in order to work with us. And it's not transactional. I think that's what people really miss about magic. It's the same reason why the cinnamon out the door doesn't bring prosperity if you just simply toss the cinnamon out the door.
Sure.
It's not a transaction. It's not like any of us can go to the store, pick up a thing of eggs and buy them. That's real. That's a transaction. We don't have to have intention for those eggs.
Right.
We can buy them and let them rot in the fridge, let them rot in the car. Maybe we forget them in the car. Like it doesn't matter. We can transact that. But with spirits and magic, it cannot be transactional and be effective. It just can't be. There has to be that give and take. And with that is the listening. Like I love how you said, listen, see what they require of you. Because I always recommend that to people. Have an extra plastic baggie in your back pocket when you're outside at all. Like even now, as we record this, it's the high season in Greece. And so my neighborhood, which is mostly, it's rural, so people don't really live here. But then in the summer, they come for their summer homes. And the litter has just been unreal. And the land is unhappy. I can tell it's just a bit over it. You know, it's a bit introverted here. And now all of a sudden there's all these people coming for a few weeks every summer. And then in the hills behind, there's all these wildfires. And, you know, you just, when you're tapped in and you hear it and you feel it. And that's our duty. You know, if we want to work with the land and have a relationship, and if we want to bring dirt into our magical practice and have a relationship with it, we have to listen to source, to the land that it came from.
Absolutely.
You know, and I mean, it might not even be something immediate that they ask for. It might be, they might be willing to just help you for years before they finally say to you, I need you to do something for me. This has gotten out of control. Like, there's the city I live in has a really bad reputation, and the spirit doesn't like that. That has the same reputation it's had for over 40 years. And I can feel that. And the city itself made a lot of progress in changing that image. And the city doesn't look anything like it did those years ago. But people are still referring to it the way they did in the 60s and 70s, and it's upset the spirit. So I'm trying to tell people to, you know, oh, it's not that way anymore. It's no longer a disgusting place. You don't have to refer it to as this. You can, it's simply us, it's come a long way. So come on, let grow. And the fact that I've been trying, you know, tell people to, like, you know, that view of the city in the past has kind of made the city spirit be a little bit more open to me, and has been more welcoming to help me see some of the more beauty in the city, and feel more power from the land, because I'm actually respecting it and I see the progress that's been made. I saw the pictures of what was, and I see what is, and I see people working towards restoring the history and honoring the land. I'm like, no, it's not that anymore. It's now this. And the spirit likes that. Simple things such as, you know, telling people the good about a place and the changes, rather than having to do a physical act. Sometimes physical acts, sometimes it's just telling people about it. Sometimes it might also just be spending more time at a location.
Yeah.
Like there's a land spirit that I've been close to since I was a little girl that desperately is telling me I need to go back and visit. But it is very difficult to get to that place, especially since my parents no longer own the land. So I'm trying to tell the spirit, I really can't get out to see you. I miss you. I keep you in my memory. I honor the things you taught me, but going to physically see you is kind of not practical.
Yeah.
Oh, I really relate to that because I'm wildly fortunate that my parents still own my childhood home and in Pennsylvania. And the land there, a lot of the trees were planted around the same time I was born. So we've grown up together. And there's a couple of trees there that as I grew into practicing witchcraft, little witch baby, and like I was like 14, I think, maybe 13, doing my first rituals like at those trees. And now when I visit, I can still go do rituals with those trees, but obviously as a much more astute practitioner. And I also have more appreciation for my journey when I'm with them. Like they just give me a perspective that I'm so grateful for. I know exactly what you mean. And I am like, I don't know how I'll ever emotionally prepare to never see that land again. It's very deep work working with the land. Very deep.
It is, and I mean, I was able to establish a similar relationship to a new piece of land that my parents have bought, but it's not the same because I'm not looking at it through the eyes of an animistic child who took everything as actually the spirits and the forces and that awe. I'm now a an adult with an animistic practice who still has an appreciation for the spirits and all the different life forms, but that awe and mystery that existed as a child that gave a special innocence and deep connection to the location just isn't there.
Well, and I think about it all the time, like how our ancestors, up until like the early 1900s, the average person in the world, or at least in the West, I don't know exactly who they surveyed for this, but spent their entire lives in an 8-mile radius. An 8-mile radius. We drive 8 miles without even thinking about it.
That's crazy.
And that disconnect is 100% related to the other disconnects we feel from nature. Like we don't get the chance to really get to know the dirt beneath our feet the way our ancestors did.
I mean, and part of this goes back to one of the first lessons I was ever taught by Christopher Penczak, in that if you're going to be doing this work as a witch, you're going to have to make some choices. There'll be times when you can choose between watching a video, playing a video game, or doing your spiritual work. You're going to have to sometimes make the choice to do the spiritual work. You don't have to make that choice every time, but if you want to actually do the work and grow, you're going to have to make that choice more often than just the video games or videos.
Very true.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And that's a factor too, that people are more distracted now from our true paths than I think we've ever been before. Like I think of like the arguments our grandparents probably fought off with television. Like, hey, that kid's always in front of the stupid box, like I can imagine that being the way it went. But then until cell phones, like you never had the distraction with you 100% of the time. Like the television was at home. You still had your friends. You still were at school looking kids in the eye, talking to them. And I think all of that, it starts really young for people today. And it just compounds until we're very disconnected.
I think as a parent, I that's one of the struggles I have all the time with my kid is trying to get him to just disconnect and go outside and enjoy some sunshine, at least, if the very least.
And I mean, I think that's the thing, is that people sometimes think that they need to dedicate hours and hours of time to connect to spirit and do this work. No, you can just take 5 minutes to go sit in the grass, put your hands on the ground, and connect that way. It doesn't have to be an elaborate form ritual. It doesn't have to take hours of time in prep. Just going out and sitting and being with the spirit and being with the force to connect. Because I get it.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of, when you first start out, many of the beginner books emphasize the importance of, creating a sacred space and casting a circle and following all those steps. And it's an elaborate process that can be intimidating. And you don't always have time for that. And as a beginner, that stuff is important because it helps you set a frame of mind to, okay, this is a sacred thing. This is something special. But once you've learned and figured out how your psychic senses work and how you personally communicate with spirit, you don't need all those elaborate tools. You can just spend 5 minutes and connect with spirit of location and place and do that work. And having that realization actually made me grow from feeling like I was still a beginner into an intermediate and advanced person, because I started seeing more significant changes in my life. And I felt the magic flowing a lot more easily because I wasn't so concerned about all the formal ritual. I was able to just do the work and then let it go. I'm able to just, let myself say, okay, I'm doing this work. I find a quick way to get into the state of mind that I need to for the work. I do the work, whether it be a spell, an offering, or just simply communicating. And then when the work is done, I'm able to just release it and go back to my life. And it can take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to an hour, depending on what I'm doing. And if I'm doing a full elaborate ritual, or if I'm just doing something that needs to be done quickly. I was say, and once you realize that you don't have to do big formal elaborate circles and invocations and everything, it makes it a lot easier to bring that magic into your daily life. Because I felt for myself when I was starting and I felt my practice stagnating, I felt that it was because I didn't have it in my everyday life, I didn't have these little things that I could do and just bring a bit of magic in to make my life better. I thought it had to be all big formal, bam, bam, all the bells and whistles. When I realized it didn't have to be all that, I was able to start doing little small actions, such as, writing a petition and designing a symbol and carrying that in my pocket after charging it with a chant and intention, carrying that in my pocket. And there's a simple piece of magic that took maybe 10 minutes to do.
If you're a serious practitioner teetering on the cusp of progress, it's time to step into true spiritual mastery. This is your invitation to join the Gardens of the Mystic Initiation and Certification Program, where I offer practitioners like you advanced teachings and guided experiences. Sign up now at leandrawitchwood.com or find the link in the show notes to learn more. Embrace your higher calling. Your journey awaits.
I feel like we get better at tapping into energy. We can raise it faster and we know what to do. We know how to direct it. I actually find like I honestly don't know the last time I wrote out my spell for myself, or had it in front of me. Like it becomes an intuitive process over time. And it really is like I think of Atomic Habits by James Clear. He talks about how it's about, I know it's so good. I'm reading it now for the second time. And he talks about how you really need to make 1% improvements at a time. That's it. 1%. And that's so small. But if we continuously made 1% mistakes, it would be big over time. So why do we have trouble believing that a small 1% improvement would change it? So that can be taking 1 minute at your altar a day, taking 1 day a month to practice a certain ritual structure that feels right for you. It can be the smallest addition. And to get it back to dirt, it can be about connecting to a specific kind of dirt. Have the goal of, I'm going to go to one place a month and connect with dirt, play in the dirt. And play is the key, I think, with especially with dirt magic. Like it's sneaky, it's mischievous, it's fun. It's
because
it's for the inner child.
And I think a lot of people sometimes also approach magic and the work so seriously that they get so wrapped up into doing things right that they end up blocking having the experience because they're so worried about getting it right. That's one of the things that you're right. Dirt has basically taught me is that you got to be reverent, and you have to have a bit of seriousness to your approach. You have, an intent, and you have to know exactly what you're doing. But you got to actually also be able to play, because if you can't play with, especially the energetic forces, if you can't take an energy and feel it and shape it, you're not going to be able to do spellcraft. And dirt, as you said, because it's mischievous, especially depending on where it is, it wants to be played. It wants to be felt and enjoyed. I mean, especially when it comes to dirt from my own yard, it goes back to hours of childhood of playing in dirt, making mud pies and digging holes and gathering dandelions and mayflowers and gathering roots and moss and things. The dirt hole held all the energy of that play, and it can then help you remember the freeness of just letting yourself play. And once you start feeling that freeness, you can start feeling the energies a little bit easier and start communicating. And a good way to get used to that is actually working with potted plant dirt, believe it or not, because potted plant dirt will have the energy of the plant that it grows in, as well as the energy of your home. And as you work with that dirt, you feel and you start playing with that spirit. You get to know that spirit by actually putting your hands in the dirt and feeling the dirt. And as you feel the dirt and get dirty, it touches you and your energy gets connected with that dirt. So then that dirt and you have that physical connection from the act of playing, but also an energetic connection. It knows you, you know it, and you can connect deeper just because you've reached in and gotten your hands dirty and laughed like a child and played like a child and just had fun.
It's finally time. My book, Sacred Wild, An Invitation to Connect with Spirits of the Land, is now available for pre-order. Pre-orders are the #1 key to a book's success. They help Sacred Wild reach more readers and even bestsellers lists. If you love the Magic Kitchen podcast, this is a great way to support my work. Pre-order now at seekingnumina.com/preorder. Thank you so much for listening. So we have one last question for you. Some of the workings that people will find in divine dirt, actually quite a lot of them, have baneful applications. Could you talk to us a little bit about why it is important, because we believe this and we talk about it a lot on the show, that it is important to know how to do baneful workings and to feel empowered to use baneful magic, especially bindings, which we feel maybe don't even belong in that category. Why is dirt such a useful element to use in magic, in protective baneful workings, but also why in your philosophy, why is baneful magic acceptable and ethical to use in certain circumstances?
I'm going to start with the why I consider it ethical to use at certain times and why it's important to know about it. I consider it ethical at times because I look at the baneful magic as a tool to protect and care for my loved ones. and I use it as a last resort after talking to people, after trying every other possible way to address a situation. If nothing else fails, then I will use baneful magic to get behavior towards a loved one to stop. And the other reason why I feel that understanding and knowing baneful magic is important is that if you understand how baneful magic works, you can understand how to protect yourself against it and how to better remove and deal with it if it does come your way. So, for some reason, you did find out you were under a magical attack. If you understand how to do magical attacks, you have a better way of approaching the removal and then the protection. Dirt is really good at that because dirt absorbs energy. So there are certain places that are associated with baneful energy, graveyards and crossroads being high on that list. And because they have so much baneful energy associated with them, you can tap into that to protect yourself from the baneful energy, as well as to use it to deal with issues that you're not able to deal with any other way. But the other thing is that baneful magic, especially, you really need to know what you're doing, why you're doing it. Because if there's any question in your mind as to if it's the right thing to do or not, or if you did it right, it will backfire, and your target might get what you want, but you will also end up having the same problems. And I know this from personal experience because I did a baneful act once and I started questioning it. And a little while later, I started having the exact same problems again in my life. So I realized, oh, that's because of this. Yes, it was. Once I readdressed the situation in myself and realized that the reason backfire was because I questioned my actions, the backfire stopped and the spell continued.
That's powerful. I'm glad you caught that too.
Yeah.
I feel like I've noticed that, especially like with prosperity magic, people will do a working for money, but then question if, oh, I'm selfish for wanting that, or oh, I shouldn't need that. I'm being greedy. And then it's like mixed signals to the universe. Like, wait, do you want it or not? Now I'm just going to pause everything, until you sort yourself out. So that is that power of intention again, is the full acknowledgement that what we put out to the universe has to be in alignment with our intention at every turn.
I mean, that's why I have that list of questions in the section that talks about ethics, because those are questions I ask myself before I think about doing a baneful act. And if I can't answer them definitively, yes or no, depending on what the question is, that means it's not the right time or place to do that baneful acting. Because if there's not a yes or a no that's definitive, it means there's something that's I'm questioning, and that questioning is going to lead to either clouded results, no results, or results and backfire.
Yeah, well said. So tell our listeners where they can keep up to date with your work and buy your book.
The best way to keep up to date with what's going on in my life and my writings is on Facebook through my personal page, which is Charity Bedell, or my author page, which is Charity Bedell Author. Anytime I have things that are planned, you can also check my Llewellyn author page, which gives a listing of events and teachings and also places you can find my writing. you can look for my writing in Which Way magazine. And I also I'm set to have a new book coming out at the end of next year. It might end up being in 2026, but we'll see how things go. And that's another book that's focuses on power of natural magic through using magical powders and curios such as powdered herbs and ground crystals and animal arts. And it's a continuation of the stuff that I talked about in Divine Dirt.
Oh, that's awesome. We will definitely
That's
be
excellent,
looking
yeah.
forward to reading that. And I did not know you wrote for Which Way magazine as well. I do too. And I was like, man, I really know her name. And I looked you up on Goodreads. I looked you up everywhere. And I'm like, what is it? Where did I read her words before? That's it.
Small world.
I know. I
Who
love
else
this
has
witchy
sent
world.
something in because I've been working on my books, but yes, I do write for Which Way magazine when I can, and I'm trying to find other magazines and places to write for. So
Yeah, I remember seeing your name on the Trello and like back when we were still using Trello. And yeah, so that's finally it. Literally for like weeks, I'm like, man, I thought I maybe met you at a festival. It's funny how that happens.
no, and as for festivals, I'm always doing whatever WitchCon is available. I'll be on the WitchCon 2025, and I'll do 2026 if they have a 2026. And it's a great festival online, and I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, we try to be at as many of those as we can too. So
Yeah.
we will look for you.
Definitely. Thank you.
So thank you for coming on the show.
I'm glad I could be here. I had a very wonderful discussion.
Merry meet,
Merry part, and merry meet again.
Thank you for joining us on the Magic Kitchen podcast. Please visit my website, leandrawitchwood.com, for news, information, and more episodes.
I'm Elyse Wells, and I can be found at Seeking Numina on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and seekingnumina.com. That's Seeking, Numina.